Alright, Torage the Warrior here, and as a lot of you may have noticed, and a lot of you have complained, I have not made a video in a long time, so real quick, just the reasoning for that, RL crap is the main reason. The other reason is there really hasn't been a lot to report on, really, as far as, I know the new patch dropped, but yeah, as far as Fury Warriors go. So there are a few things to report on that I will in this video. There won't be a new DPS guide because they didn't change our rotation at all, really. So there's no new guide, probably until Mists, which I will also talk about here. The first thing I want to talk about is my personal hero, one of them actually, as far as warriors go, Landsoul, is making videos again. He wasn't for a long time, I think, and now he's like made videos, but they're not like just him doing stuff. It's actually him talking about warrior stuff. It's pretty serious stuff. If you're not into the warrior metagame, if you're not into the advanced Fury Warrior or just DPS warrior stuff, you may not understand it, but if you are into that, then he is definitely something you should be watching. For those who don't know, Landsoul is the DPS warrior for Vodka. There's items in the game named after him. He's a pretty big deal. If you're a Fury Warrior, you really should be keeping up with him. He's got two sort of talks out. One is like an in-depth look at the changes in Mists, so I'm going to talk a little bit of my thoughts about that later on here. And one of them is a new method for the execute rotation. I'm not going to say that here because that's his, so you got to go watch it to get that. But I know we talked a while back about instead of spamming execute, you should pretty much just rotate execute and Bloodthirst. And then if you're low rage, maybe use a slam proc in there. If you're raged rebuild, Colossus Smash on cooldown, and that's pretty much what you do in the execute rotation. His is quite a bit more complicated, but I've given it a try for myself, and I can tell you it's pretty awesome, so you should look that. His YouTube is just Landsoul WoW. It can also, a link to it can be found in my featured channels box on my channel, so definitely go check it out. So as far as rotation changes in 4.3, nothing changed. In fact, the only change that you do at all has to do with our little set bonus here, which is heroic strikes cost 10 less rage. Well, inner rage is active, and so instead of just using inner rage when you can't dump off your when your rage fast enough, because inner rage reduces the cooldown. It's this one right here. Reduces the cooldown of heroic strike and cleave by 50% for 15 seconds. So when you're using that for heroic strike to get rid of your rage faster because you have too much range incoming, instead you're pretty much going to be using it on cooldown just to make your heroic strike cost less. You're still going to want it for times where you're going to need to get rid of extra rage, but pretty much I've just been using it almost on cooldown, so my heroic strike costs 20 instead of 30, so you can just straight use more heroic strikes. It's actually pretty awesome. It's actually a pretty huge bonus if you think about it that way. Even if you don't rattle off a bunch in a row, say you use inner rage and in that 15-second window you use, say, 3 heroic strikes. Well, instead of costing you 90 rage, it's going to cost you 60 rage. Meaning you can fit in a whole extra heroic strike or maybe another, other abilities in there. In that same amount of time, you can do more abilities, because that's what rage means. The other bonus is Bloodthirst has a 6% chance to put the Colossus Smash debuff. You're going to be using Bloodthirst on cooldown regardless, so that doesn't really change. That's a nice extra little bonus there when that happens, but it doesn't really change anything. And one little thing that I did notice here is in glyphs. The glyph of Colossus Smash, it used to just say, I think they changed the tooltip on it too, it used to just add a stack of Sunder on, and you couldn't actually start a Sunder stack with it. You had to use the glyph of Heroic Throw to put the first Sunder on there, then you added Sunders with Colossus Smash. You no longer need to do that. Colossus Smash just Sunders now. So if you want to get that 2 Sunders up real quick, you can still take Heroic Throw, but in lots of fights, I've switched to Glyph of Death Wish because there's a lot of heavy damage going out where at the same time that you need to be doing a lot of heavy damage, where you want to save your cooldown for that, and you're going to be taking a lot of damage at a time. So having the Glyph of Death Wish is pretty nice for basically every fight. And since you don't really need Heroic Throw anymore, I've just kind of replaced that. So on to Fury DPS in Mists of Pandaria, at least how it's looking, which the way it's looking, there's some things that look very awesome and some things that look very scary and potentially retarded. So for those who don't know, they change specializations and talents around a lot. Most of the stuff that used to be in your spec, your talent tree, you would just you'd get that as a talent, spend points on it. Now you just kind of get that for being Fury. Just as you level up, you get Fury things. And the talents are actually these 6 different choices every 15 levels, starting at level 15. And a lot of them are really cool, by the way. I love this new talent way. People are like, oh, well, it's less choices. It's actually more. You've never really had 6 difficult choices before, ever. And these are pretty much all difficult choices. So I absolutely love this new talent system. I especially love the fact that there are things you don't have to go and respec or have dual spec or whatever. You kind of, from what I understand, this may or may not be true, you can kind of swap them out like glyphs. So you can basically pick the right tools for the fight if you need things. So I'm not going to go down the list of all those. Those are on the World of Warcraft website. If you go to the Mist of Pandaria and talent section, you can click the warrior button and look at all those yourself. But I'm going to go over a couple combinations, and mostly I'm just going to go over like what are rotations going to look like. They've added a baseline Enrage to Warrior. So all the other Enrage deals like Wrecking Crew and Enrage are gone. Enrage is just something all Warriors get level 14 now. And critical strikes with special abilities and critical blocks enrage you, increasing your rage you generate from normal melee attacks by 25%. So that's a bit more onto the rage income right there, which doesn't really change anything. I mean, right now, I think, well, that might change stat weights a lot for crit, because crit is going to be better because you get more rage from having more crit. We already get more rage from having more crit from flurry. And another thing is that they did change flurry. Flurry is now let me find it. Flurry is now at level 60. In Fury, and your melee hits have a 9% chance to increase your attack speed by 25%. So it's not off of crits anymore, it's just melee hits. So it's probably going to be a much lower chance, because only 9%, not 100% on crit. So it doesn't change. It's different because it's more consistent. It's always going to be the same, but it's not going to change based on crit anymore, but you're still going to want crit for extra rage because of Enrage. So there's that. So another thing they've changed is that Slam is no longer a Fury thing. We have a different thing called Wild Strike now. So Wild Strike swings with your offhand only, and it deals 95% weapon damage from your offhand, plus it looks like a percentage of attack power. Because it says 454, usually that means the damage usually means that it scales off of attack power. It also reduces the effectiveness of healing. It doesn't give a percentage, but I'm pretty sure that's a Mortal Strike ability, which is awesome because this actually has no cooldown. It's instant. It just costs 30 rage. You can use it whenever. So the ideal rotation would be a Bloodthirst, which now has a 6-second cooldown, then a Raging Blow, which still has a 6-second cooldown, and then you would put in your Wild Strikes in there, and then you would repeat. So that's pretty simple. And so the Wild Strikes also, you put in 2 Wild Strikes in between, or if you have the new Blood Surge, when it procs, it just makes Wild Strike a 1-second cooldown instead of a 1.5-second cooldown, so it's a shorter global. And it reduces the rage cost by 20. So you actually get, and it is for your next 3 Wild Strikes. So you actually get 3 Wild Strikes in the same time that you would normally do 2. And it costs 30 rage instead of 60. So half the rage, 1 extra Wild Strike if you get a Blood Surge proc. And the Blood Surge proc is a 30% chance, but you also got to keep in mind that Bloodthirst is 6-second cooldown now. So what do we got here again? We got Bloodthirst, Raging Blow, either 2 Wild Strikes normally or 3 Wild Strikes with Blood Surge, and then repeat. You also have Colossus Smash, but here's the problem I run into with Colossus Smash, because it costs 80 rage. So, and let's look at it. Say we built up 100 rage, which I don't know when that would actually even happen at all, honestly, during a fight. So, but just theoretically, so I have 100 rage minus 80 rage on the first global for our Colossus Smash. Then, on the next global, we use a Bloodthirst. Now, Bloodthirst actually gives you 10 rage now, as of now. So that will put us up to 30 rage. And then, after that, we will use our Raging Blow, which costs 30 rage, putting us at 0. Now, sometime that's after 3 seconds. So if you're Titan's Grip with two-handers, sometime in that window there, without flurry up, we're assuming worst case scenario here, so we don't have flurry up. So sometime in that window there, we will get our melee swing, which gives us 35 rage. And that will put us, now that's also, again, assuming worst case scenario, so you don't have the enrage, you don't have the 25%, so that's just both melee hits with two-handers usually give you 3.6 speed, about 35 rage. So that gives us enough rage for our next Wild Strike, which costs 30 rage. So that puts us at 5 rage, and our melee swing hasn't gone off yet. So we kind of wait a global from what I see in that situation. And then our melee swing, and then we will have our Bloodthirst again, giving us another 5, giving us another 10, putting us at 15. Then our melee swing will go off, and you kind of go from there. But that's the point that concerns me right there, is that little window where we aren't able to use our global, which is strange that they would put that there. I'm not sure what we would do. I'm assuming is what we would do there would be a Battle Shout. Now again, this is only after a Colossus Smash, and this is a worst case scenario. So there are a few things that would fix this entirely. So the first way that would fix it would be, of course, to get a Blood Surge proc off of that Bloodthirst. That would make it so we can use our 3 Wild Strikes instead of 2, and it would only cost us 30 rage. It would cost us the same amount as the 1. So that would leave us fine and dandy. Now, another scenario to look at would be the Enrage, increasing our rage gained by 25%. So running through that same scenario, starting at 100 rage, using Colossus Smash to go down to 20 rage, then using Bloodthirst to get back up to 30 rage, then using Raging Blow, going back to 0 rage, then our melee swing goes off. But this time we get 44 rage, because it's actually 35 rage and some change if you work it all out. So with 44 rage, we then can use our Wild Strike, putting us down to 14 rage. Now, looking at what we can use with that much rage, because it's not enough for a Wild Strike, but it would be enough to use a Rend, which you can use in all stances now, because Rend only costs 10 rage. Now the last scenario here we have is if you've got Flurry. So Flurry will increase our attack speed by 25%. This will make our melee swing down to around 2.8-ish, 2.8-ish. Assuming you've got a little bit of haste in there, 2.8 is probably a safe place to bet. So with Flurry Up, it actually makes all the difference. So we have our 100 rage, then we lose 80 for using Colossus Smash, then we gain 10, putting us at 30 for our Raging Blow. But before that Raging Blow goes off, so somewhere in there, our next melee swing will go off, giving us enough rage to use our next Wild Strike and letting us go through the rotation just fine. Now, also, another thing to keep track of is there could be awesome moments where you have Flurry and you have Enrage, because they can both happen at the same time, and you're getting 44 rage off of all of these, and that makes things pretty awesome. So then you're just rage positive, which also may or may not answer the next question, which is how are you going to get to 100 rage off of this rotation in the first place? So hopefully with enough of these rage generating things going off, you will be able to stack it up to 100. I'm just not sure, because right now, getting to 100 is bad. You don't want to get to 100. That means if you hit again or anything gives you more rage, then that rage is wasted. So this is, and having that window of 80 rage is pretty close, 80 to 20. That's less than a melee mark, swing in there to overcap your rage. So most of the time you won't be Colossus smashing on 100 rage. You'll be Colossus smashing on 80 something. So it's just really risky having something that costs that much in there. So from this, there's just that one situation where you are unable to do anything. So hopefully that happens rarely enough that you can fill that global with a Battle Shout. So yes, which we kind of already do now. There is those off cases where you will miss streak and not have enough rage, which is still possible. in this, because you still have to have hit, and they're still missing. Going to be happening in there for that. So there's also that to consider. Another question is, where does Heroic Strike fit into all this? And I think it's going to be used a lot less, and that is for the reason that, first off, there's an inner rage anymore, and you think, oh man, there's no inner rage, but like, when are you going to get a chance to use it, honestly? So that, and I think Heroic Strike, if I'm not mistaken, Heroic Strike now just has a 1.5 second cooldown all the time, so nothing to even worry about there. But the thing is, like, when are you going to use it? The only time I would say using it is if you are close to rage capping and not near a Colossus Smash. I'd say if your Colossus Smash is within the next like 3 or 4 globals of coming up, or 3 or 4 melee swings of coming up, and you're close to rage capping, I would just keep it there. Like, just save it so you have that extra rage to use during Colossus Smash. So, yeah. Like, it sounds like a terrible thing to say, to possibly waste rage because of it, but it's better to get those attacks in during Colossus Smash and be able to use Colossus Smash as it comes off of cooldown. So real quick here, before we go, we're going to look at talents. There's 6 trees of talents, like I said before. All the other ones don't directly affect your damage, except for the last 2 tiers. We're going to talk about those real quick. Second to last tier, we've got Deadly Calm, Bloodbath, and Stormbolt. Deadly Calm is a 1-minute cooldown once you get 3 free Heroic Strikes or Cleaves. Bloodbath is a 2-minute cooldown. It kind of replaces Deep Wounds, because you don't have Deep Wounds anymore, for the next 12 seconds, so 8 globals. All of your special attacks cause a target to bleed for additional 30% damage over 6 seconds. That is a 2-minute cooldown. Then you've got Stormbolt, which is really cool, because it is a 30-second cooldown. Hurl your weapon at an enemy, causing 100% weapon damage, and stunning them for 3 seconds, but if it can't be stunned, so if it's like a boss in a raid, it does an additional 300% weapon damage. That's a 400% multiplier. That's 4 times damage on your weapon damage for your main hand, which is ridiculous. And also it says it replaces Heroic Throw, so hopefully not, but if that is true, it probably puts your melee swing on, resets your melee swing timer like Heroic Throw does currently, so that's bad. But it still may be worth it anyway, because that seems like a lot of damage. So looking at these things, we got a 1 minute on Deadly Calm, 2 minute on Bloodbath, and 30-second on Stormbolt. So you got to just kind of weigh in what's going to be more damage in that situation. You've got, your 3 or 6 Heroic Strikes or 6 Cleaves, because you'd be able to use it twice in 2 minutes. Then you've got your 8 globals, 30% extra weapon damage, or 30% extra damage as a bleed. Then you've got Stormbolt, so you'd be able to use that 4 times in 2 minutes. And that would be 400% damage on each one of those, possibly resetting your swing timer. You'd hopefully they all end up being pretty close. Bloodbath or Deadly Calm seems like it would be the best in sort of a multi-target situation, where you could use that on Cleaves, because they do still have Meat Cleaver, which is now a passive thing that all warriors have, as Meat Cleaver sets. Your Cleave and Whirlwind give you an AoE stuff, give you extra AoE damage, basically. So Bloodbath seems like, so Deadly Calm would be good in a couple targets. Bloodbath, because you could Whirlwind and potentially Blade Storm, and that would count for that. So everything you hit would bleed during that cooldown, so that would be awesome. And then single target would probably be Stormbolt. And since Stormbolt doesn't cost any rage and it's got a 30-second cooldown, you could probably use that to fix your case of the missing global that we talked about earlier with Stormbolt. The last tier here, we've got Blade Storm, Shockwave, and Avatar. Now, Blade Storm doesn't say anything about you. I mean, you can use this as Fury now. You can Fury Blade Storm. And you can also now use Shout String Blade Storm, which is cool. And it doesn't say anything about it not hitting with your offhand. It doesn't say it does, but it doesn't say it doesn't. So if you can Titan's Grip Blade Storm, that's going to be crazy nuts awesome, especially because that counts as an ability. So with Bloodbath, good lord. Shockwave, 20-second cooldown. This used to be in Prot. Now it's for anyone who wants it. You may think, well, it's a Prot ability. doesn't do that much damage. No, Shockwave is based off of attack power, which is why prots don't hit that much hard unless you've got a bunch of vengeance, and it does hit really hard. But you can test it now. Go put on your DPS gear and Shockwave something. It does a lot of damage with a lot of attack power. And they may change it, who knows. And it is a stun, so raid situations where you want to stun things, Shockwave is going to be great. Avatar, which basically replaces Death Wish. They don't have Death Wish anymore. I say it replaces it because it also does increases all damage dealt by 20%. And it causes but it's like better because it causes your attacks to generate extra rage. It also makes it so you can't you can't have any movement pairing things. So basically it is Death Wish plus extra rage when you hit things, plus a Hand of Freedom, plus half the cooldown. So those of you thinking that, oh well, this thing can't be as good as Blade Storm or Shockwave, yes, Avatar is awesome. So single target, that's definitely going to be the case. You want that. Shockwave, probably a sort of sustained multi-target thing would be good for that, or when you have to stun things. And then Blade Storm when you have sort of that, oh crap, there's a bunch of ads situation, because it's 1.5 minute cooldown still. So yeah, also Avatar with the increased rage may also solve your rage problem in the case of the missing global, like we talked about earlier. So that's that, and see you next Rage Talk. Thank you for watching. Also, be sure to tune in to Twitch TV/torage_warrior on Fridays, usually Fridays starting around 6-ish on the west coast of the United States. I will start streaming, and I usually stop pretty much when I'm too tired. So a few hours there. It's going to be probably some drawing that I'm going to start with, then the raid, then whatever PvP shenanigans happens afterwards. So yeah, be around for that. And that is all. See you later.